Welcome back to the Landlord Chick podcast. So, first, I just want to start off by saying thank you from the bottom of my heart for your patience during my unannounced sabbatical uh, after the death of my mother. Thank you as well for your messages that you have sent me since I posted the episode. Uh, your outpouring of support and condolences has really meant a lot to me. Uh, as I kind of alluded to in the last episode, my relationship with my mom was not just a regular mother daughter relationship. Like, it went beyond mother daughter, and there was this strong connection and just, I can't begin to describe it other than saying it came almost closer to being like a spouse relationship without getting too psychologically weird than it did like a mother daughter relationship. So, your your comments and your messages to me have really truly meant a lot. And this is going to be a long road. Like, I obviously know it's not like we hit the 3-4 month mark, 5 month mark, and ooh, I'm better. No, this is going to be a long road. And as many of you have said in your comments, that you've been in my position, whether you've lost a spouse or you had a sister or brother that you were super close to. And then there was actually one guy who emailed me and said that he felt like he had a similar relationship with his father. And when his father died, it was a huge blow as well. So thank you very much from the bottom of my heart for all of your messages. They are extremely comforting, especially knowing that I'm not alone in sort of feeling this huge level of grief and this sort of like life-shattering experience when it comes to losing somebody like a parent or a brother and sister that you have an extremely deep connection with. But anyway, I am ramping up to do another installment of Am I the Asshole Landlord, which was a fan favorite from last year. But I thought before we got to that, I would shed some positive light on real estate forums out there. So today's episode is sort of a miscellaneous catch-all of some of the better suggestions that I have seen appear on real estate forums in responses to people's questions. So this is the positive side of real estate forums versus Am I the Asshole Landlord sort of goes to like the negative side, and it also ends up being comical. This one is not going to be quite as comical as the Asshole Landlord does, but I wanted to shed some light on the positive advice that comes out of real estate forums. Because sometimes I feel like, whether it be when I'm teaching or when I'm doing this podcast, I feel like I maybe focus a little bit too much on the bad advice that happens on these forums. And so I figured it's time to shed the light on the good advice that comes from these forums from time to time. So let's get into it. Building a real estate portfolio is as much about buying properties as being a de facto entrepreneur. I'm Karina Ufinger. I'm a multi-property investor, rental management company CEO, and also a landlord coach. I'm going to show you the systems and knowledge you need to thrive as a real estate entrepreneur. From your first property purchase to building a portfolio of passive income where you work less than 5 hours a week, you'll learn the essential information and skills to build a profitable portfolio and live the life you truly want. Whether you're well on your journey or just starting out, you're in the right place. Welcome to the Landlord Chick podcast. So in this episode, I have compiled a list. This one is a rather short list because we're going to do a lot of talking about these things. But I have a list of some of the best suggestions that I have seen appear on either local real estate forums, Bigger Pockets. Then there's miscellaneous places that you maybe kind of interact with real estate people, landlords. So this is sort of the creme de la creme best advice that I have seen. And we're going to cover a wide range of things here. Like, we're not going to be strictly in the theme of tenant relations. We're not going to be strictly in the theme of like managing your property or assets, things like that. we're going to be kind of across the board because these really are the best ideas that I have seen tossed out. None of these ideas are coming from me. They are coming from other people, so other landlords, and this is from their personal experiences that they have posted on these forums. So the first one that I had on my list was a person who was trying to get ideas for increasing tenant retention. And this one actually gave a really, really good suggestion, and I like the way they implemented this. So the question was posed about how do you increase tenant retention every year? Particularly, it seems like many tenants move because units are out of date or they get sick of how they look. How have you guys tried to address that without losing the tenant? So one landlord responded who has properties in Pennsylvania, and they said that what they do is when a tenant lives with them for 2 years or more, every year at their renewal, they give them the option to have an item in their unit upgraded. Now, they go on to say that they're very particular with their options. So it's not like they're offering to put in new cabinets. They're not offering to put in a new tub surround or tub. He says, we pick rather inconsequential, smaller things in regards to the work that needs to be done to accomplish the upgrade. So we're looking at things like kitchen faucets, bathroom faucets, light fixtures. We've even had one tenant specifically request that she just get new light switch covers because she didn't really like the beige ones that were in there. So he's pinpointing exactly that they're not doing huge upgrades. They're doing sort of the small ones that sometimes we tend to do as part of repairs, like a light fixture just kind of burns out or a motor dies on a fan. You know, obviously we kind of replace these from time to time when the unit's occupied anyway. Then he actually gives them the opportunity to pick it. Now, one thing he does say is that he keeps notes of particularly light fixtures, faucets, and things like that, and when they were replaced, so that if he did just replace it before the tenant moved in, they're not just like changing it out because the tenant doesn't like the look of it. So he makes it very clear that he'll give the tenants the option they pick from. He'll go back to his records and he'll say, actually, I just put that in before you moved in, so I'm actually not willing to switch that out. So the way he does it mechanically is he actually sends out a link to a Google form, which he has set up where the tenant can then select their top 2 requested upgrades. And it's very itemized. So it says kitchen light, bedroom 1 light, bedroom 2 light, kitchen faucet, bathroom faucet. And then there's even like an other spot where they can fit in what they like to request. Then based on their response from that form, he goes back into his records to just see if it makes sense to change out that item. Then he'll respond to the tenant and let them know that, yes, I'd be happy to change out your hallway light fixtures. Or I'm sorry, I can't change out your bathroom faucet because I just did that 3 years ago. So I thought that was a really good tip because first off, it gives the tenant a little bit of say in the appearance of their apartment. And if we think about it, the tenants don't have a lot of opportunity to personalize their units. So giving them the option to do something like that when they re-up their lease can be a little extra added bonus to them. Now, of course, they don't actually pick out the light fixtures or anything like that. He still goes and picks out the light fixtures, but he makes it a point to say that he obviously is getting good, solid upgrades. So he's getting what he calls slightly more artistic things rather than sort of run-of-the-mill, low-cost, bland, new fixtures. So I do really like this suggestion because I think it's something that can get overlooked, but yet it's really easy to do. Because items that are on this list, like I said, these are kind of routine things that you might find yourself doing in an occupied unit anyway. And giving the tenant the opportunity to have this like sense of ownership where it's like, I don't like the bathroom faucet. Can you replace that? And it being sort of a reward for staying there for a year and signing on for a year. It kind of really gives this element of landlord-tenant relationship to a whole new level. Now, one thing I would like to point out with this is that Of course, I highly recommend that you follow his system where you're kind of tracking when you replaced things. Then I would also say doing it in a very organized fashion where you have particular things that they can pick from. It's not necessarily an open ended free for all. So create a list of what you think would be okay improvements to make in an occupied unit. And again, we're not going huge with this. We're not even talking toilet or vanity. We're not talking about those things. We're just talking about the easy things that you can change out while the tenant is there. One that he didn't seem to mention, but I think is a really good one, is if you have floor registers, particularly the ones that go into the carpet. I think, and I've posted this on my Instagram before, those are a huge overlooked accessory in rentals. We're taking out sort of the bland metal ones that basically dominated homes from like the 70s to like basically 10 years ago. Changing those out for something slightly more artistic makes a huge difference in the appearance of the room. So that would be something that I would offer, would be new floor registers. Because those are inexpensive. I think the nicer ones that I paid for in my unit like 2 years ago when I did it, they were like $12 a piece, which when I consider the huge upgrade it made to that room or those rooms, especially with the new LVP, it was absolutely 100% worth it. Then I would also maybe consider adding like doorknobs. Now, I again wouldn't do all the doorknobs because all the doorknobs get pricey, but maybe it'd be good to replace the bathroom doorknob or the bedroom doorknobs or things like that. I think just kind of think outside the box as far as easy things for you to swap out that would change the appearance of the unit and give it a fresher look. Also, in the area of tenant relations, there was another great suggestion in regards to just how do you make it personal with the tenant. Now, first I was like, what do you mean personal? Because this is a business relationship. But then I thought about it and I read the response a little bit more. And the person is making a very good point, which is what I made a couple times previously, is that while this is a business relationship, we are involved in a very personal aspect of the tenants' lives, which is where they live. And that is an extremely personal thing for anybody. The place that you lay your head, the place that you go to get rid of your stresses, the place that you go to relax and have a good time and be yourself, that's a very personal thing in your life. So as much as this is a business relationship, we have to appreciate and understand the uniqueness that exists because we're a business relationship that directly affects every aspect of where that tenant lays their head at night. So we can't necessarily treat it entirely strictly like a true business relationship. There needs to be a little extra element of recognizing the uniqueness of it. We aren't their mortgage company where they're just giving us money and then that's the end of the relationship. Our choices affect the tenants that they get as far as fellow neighbors. Our choices affect how their property functions, how their unit works, how it looks. So from that regard, I think this person did hit the nail on a very good idea right there. And as far as there is this other element of the relationship that isn't just strictly business because of that uniqueness. Now, one person had suggested that one of the things that they like to do is they make it a point to recognize tenant birthdays. And the way they've implemented this is, well, first, obviously, because we have date of birth from applications, it's super easy for us to recognize birthdays as landlords. So what they have is they actually have a reminder set up in a task management system. And it tells them the birthdays that are coming up in the next quarter of the year. Then this particular landlord has gone on to Vistaprint and they have gotten sort of robo-printed birthday cards that have a professional yet slightly personal message to them. And what they do is the last month of a quarter, they get all the birthday cards ready for the next quarter. And they actually go and they purchase little gift cards that they include in the birthday message and they get it in the mail to the tenant. So they say they prefer to get gift cards for local businesses like local coffee shops, things that people are likely to use. So they go out, they buy these gift cards. And one thing that was really, really cool about the way they explained it, they said, if possible, they like to stock up on the gift cards for the following year's birthdays at Christmas time, because that's when a lot of stores are giving away sort of like gift card bonuses, where if you buy $30 in gift cards, you get a free $10 one. So they make it a point to stock up during the holiday season on these gift cards for birthdays for tenants, which I think is an amazing tip, because either you could look at it as like, okay, you get every third gift card for a tenant free, or $10, $20, $30 you can give out to your friends or whoever as gifts then for Christmas, and you aren't actually spending money on that. So I thought that was a really solid extra tip in this suggestion, but I love their idea of recognizing birthdays. And the last thing they said in there was that although they get their birthday cards printed from Vistaprint, they do hand sign them, they do hand address the envelope, they don't use labels. They said it just adds to the personalization. The moment that you have it robo-signed with your signature, the moment that you don't actually personalize it, put the tenant's name in there, and you don't address the envelope yourself, the whole effect of it is pretty much lost. So that I thought was an amazing suggestion, particularly how they get into the finite details of the way they personalize it. Now, another one, and this one really kind of blew me away, because this is something that I think makes a ton of sense. It's not just about tenant relations. This one is about actually protecting your investment. So on a real estate forum, a landlord had said that they had recently had a fire, and well, the tenant had a kitchen fire, and because the tenant did not have a fire extinguisher in the unit, the fire got out of control and it created much more damage than what it would have been if there had been a fire extinguisher there. So they were asking feedback if people had provided fire extinguishers. Now, this one gentleman who has investment properties in Oklahoma, he said that until a couple of years ago, he did keep fire extinguishers in his units. However, he quickly realized there's one big problem with fire extinguishers. The majority of people on this planet do not know how to use them. And he is so incredibly correct with that. I think about that a lot, where I don't even think for sure I know how to use a fire extinguisher. I've never actually used one. So, like, if I have to use one, I'm pretty sure I can figure it out, but I've never actually have had to use one. And there's always this element of, if you're in this frantic situation, is your mind going to be able to process to pull out the pin, how hard to press down the lever? Are you able to direct the canister the way you need to direct it? Like, there's a lot of things that sort of like cross my mind where it's like, would I be prepared for this? Something that happened during my sabbatical actually was, I was in my bedroom one night about 1:00 in the morning, when my husband was on vacation, or Christmas vacation from work, and I was trying to fall asleep, and I kept smelling something, and I'm like, and I thought it was the brand new space heater that I had bought for my bedroom, because I'd upgraded to this fancy electronic one that I can control from my phone. So I unplugged that, and I went and I got my old space heater, put it in here, plugged it in, turned it on. I was trying to fall back asleep, and I'm like, God, I still smell that. That smell should have gone away already. I'm like, what is that smell? So I got up, and like, I noticed, okay, the smell wasn't coming from that corner of the room where the space heaters are. Like, it's really concentrated near my bedroom. And so I went to go touch the outlet that has my lamp plugged into it. And oh my gosh, boiling hot. And then the wall, guys, incredibly hot. So I immediately called my husband, who was downstairs gaming. I'm like, hey, hot wall, hot electrical outlet. You got to get out here. So he comes up the stairs, and he has this temperature gauge that he uses. It's a laser one. And so he pointed it at the outlet, didn't register, not a surprise. It didn't register the wall either, which means that both of those were well over 500 degrees. So anyway, I'm telling this story not to give you frightening stories about electrical outlets, but rather it brings me to this point of, like, if I hadn't caught it at that moment, and I was the one frantically getting the fire extinguisher and trying to use it to save my house, I don't know how that would have ended up. Now, obviously, my husband was in the basement. Like, he would have been up to like use one and take control of it. But that really sort of hit me when I read that forum thing. I'm like, gosh, you know what? I think about back to that electrical fire I had like a month ago. Like, I don't know. I don't know how that would have ended up if I didn't catch it when I did. So, also, as the person goes on to say, fire extinguishers can often make more of a mess when used improperly or when the wrong one is used. And that's a very, very key point there. I think a lot of people miss the fact that fire extinguishers are meant for certain type of fires. So there's the sort of standard fire extinguisher that we think is a catch-all fire extinguisher, but spoiler alert, it's not. Those standard ones can't do a chemical fire. And so there's other elements to providing fire extinguishers that you're just not entirely certain. Then, of course, you have to consider the fact that fire extinguishers can lose their charge. And that's kind of an issue because then you need to get a new one or they need to get recharged by a company, depending on, kind of like how big it is and everything like that. So I think there are some valid points there as far as like a fire extinguisher can create more stuff to clean up for a small fire than really if somebody had been able to catch it sooner or just in a good pinpoint spray with a fire extinguisher. I think that was a very good point. Because if you haven't had to clean up after a fire extinguisher, by the way, it is awful. So I had a bad tenant in one of my quads many years ago now. And this was a quad where we had to have a fire extinguisher in the common hallway. And for whatever reason, they just decided to spray it off in the hallway. So we had to clean that up. And that stunk, guys. Like, it didn't just stink because like we had to gain access to an occupied unit for water and that stuff because it's an old building and there wasn't a vacant unit, but like it stunk just because it was really laborious. Like, it was very time consuming, a lot of hard work to get it out of the nooks and crannies and everything. So like, I get what he's saying with a fire extinguisher creating more work. Maybe not necessarily than what it's worth, because it's certainly worth it, but it creates a lot more work in some instances. So anyway, this guy, he says that 3 years ago, he started providing the fire blankets. So if you guys have seen on Instagram or TikTok, you've probably seen these fire blankets that were invented by firefighters. You see like the Ring doorbell or Ring security camera footage where you have somebody cooking or a candle kind of gets knocked over. And instead of going for a fire extinguisher, they go for this blanket. They throw the blanket on there and it terminates the fire. So this particular landlord says that he started providing these in Oklahoma. He provides one in the kitchen. And he says he feels a lot more safe with these because there's no question about whether the tenant knows how to operate it. There's no question about whether or not the canister is pressurized. And it's something that doesn't create any sort of excess mess. They pull out the blanket, they throw it on the fire goes out. He says that he actually attaches these, if possible, to the side of the refrigerator, whatever's closest to the stove. If it can't be on the side of the refrigerator, then what he does is he just attaches it to the inside of the closest cabinet to the stove, and that way the tenant always knows where it is. Now, one person did ask if you had a problem with these walking away, and the landlord was very honest. He said, you know what? In the 3 years we've been doing this and owning 15 units, we've had 3 of these walk away, per se, being stolen by the tenant. And he says, but it doesn't bother me because even if I do pay $60 to replace 3 of them in a year, the fact that they are much easier to use than a fire extinguisher makes up for that cost, and it gives me extreme peace of mind. So I think that is a really awesome idea, using those fire blankets. Now, a fire blanket wouldn't help in regards to the outlet fire that I had kind of going on. Still need a fire extinguisher for that. But when we think about the ways that usually a fire is created by a tenant, and I mean that accidentally, nobody intentionally setting one, you have a stove fire, you have a candle, you have maybe a deep fryer situation. So you have these sort of fires that are happening where the blanket would certainly take care of the issue. And really, the fire extinguisher would only be needed for like that 1% of fires, which would be sort of like a vertical fire per se. So I think that is an incredibly smart tip. I agree with him that the $60 needed to replace 3 blankets a year is totally worth the peace of mind that it brings. And he also points out that he just stocks up on the blankets at Christmas time when these fire blankets are on sale. So guys, that is 3 of the best of the forum tips that I found. I wanted to do one more, but you guys know, I try and keep these podcasts to like 25 minutes or less. If they go longer, I really try not to do it, but I want it to be something that we're getting really in depth into a topic with. So I'm going to cut this one off at these 3, the best tips that I found from real estate forums in the past couple months. I hope you guys learned something. I hope you guys choose to implement something, because I think all 3 of these are smashingly good ideas, particularly, honestly, the fire blanket one. I see myself implementing that very, very quickly here, I think, because I agree 100%. The peace of mind, knowing that I provided something that's easy to use, and especially having it so visible to the tenants so that they know it exists, that it's there for them to use. I think that is a win-win across the board. All right, guys, I hope you have a great rest of your week, and I will see you on the next episode of the Landlord Chick Podcast.